Ladies and gentlemen, there are people in this world who believe they are untouchable. They walk into a room, chest puffed up, convinced they are the smartest, the most charming, the most powerful person in the room. They crave admiration like oxygen, and when they don't get it, they suffocate. Today, I want to give you the tools to break free from their grip. Not just to escape, but to turn the table. If you've ever dealt with a narcissist, you know they feed on control, on manipulation, on making you question your worth. But what happens when you take that power away? What happens when you become the one they can't shake? Here are 7 ways to torture a narcissist, not through anger, not through revenge, but through pure, unshakable strength. A narcissist is like a performer on a grand stage, waiting for the applause, desperate for admiration. Their entire existence is built on one thing: attention. They crave it, they feed off it, and without it, they wither. This is their fuel, their oxygen. When people admire them, they feel alive. When they command a room, when they are the center of attention, they feel important. But take that away, silence the applause, ignore their performance. That, my friends, is how you truly torture a narcissist. See, a narcissist doesn't just want attention, they need it. It's more than a desire, it's a dependency. They live for validation, for approval, for the feeling that they are superior. That's why they talk so much about themselves, why they exaggerate their achievements, why they make sure every conversation somehow circles back to them. They need to be admired, envied, respected. But the moment you stop playing that game, the moment you refuse to give them the validation they seek, they start to unravel. They might not show it at first. They might pretend they don't care, but inside they are fuming. They're waiting for you to react, waiting for you to acknowledge them. And when you don't, that silence is deafening. That void is unbearable. It's like taking a microphone away from a singer mid-performance. They don't know what to do with themselves. They feel powerless. You see, most people, when dealing with a narcissist, fall into the same trap. They try to reason with them. They try to fight back, to prove a point, to explain themselves. But that's exactly what the narcissist wants. They want you engaged, emotional, invested, because as long as you're reacting, they still have power over you. They still have control. But what happens when you stop? What happens when you don't answer the call? Don't respond to the text. Don't react to the provocation. What happens when you meet their grandstanding with a shrug, their manipulation with indifference? They lose their grip. They feel invisible. And for a narcissist, invisibility is worse than death. That's why ignoring them is so powerful, because they don't just want attention, they expect it. They believe they deserve it. They believe they are so important, so special that people should admire them. And when you don't, it challenges their entire perception of themselves. It forces them to face a terrifying possibility that they are not as powerful, not as superior, not as irresistible as they thought. Now, make no mistake, the narcissist will not go down quietly. They will try every trick in the book to get your attention back. First, they'll charm you, flatter you, try to win you over again. If that doesn't work, they'll play the victim, guilt trip you, act as though you've wronged them. And if that fails, they'll lash out. They'll insult you, provoke you, do whatever it takes to get a reaction. Because even negative attention is still attention. But that is where your power lies. When you refuse to engage, when you starve their ego completely, you take away their control, you take away their ability to dictate the emotional tone of the situation, and in doing so, you drive them into a state of panic. A narcissist without attention is like a fire without oxygen. It flickers, struggles, and eventually dies out. The more you ignore them, the weaker they become. And it's not just about silence, it's about detachment. You don't just stop talking to them, you stop caring. You stop reacting emotionally, because if they sense that you still care, even a little, they will find a way back in. And here's the most important part. They know when they've lost. They might not admit it. They might pretend they don't care, but deep down they feel it. They hate feeling powerless. They hate feeling insignificant. And when you refuse to give them what they crave, when you deny them the fuel they need to keep going, you show them something they never expected. You were never under their control to begin with. A narcissist lives in a world of carefully constructed illusions. They craft a version of themselves that is flawless, untouchable, superior. They believe they are smarter, more important, and more deserving than everyone else. But beneath that polished exterior lies something fragile, something they fight to keep hidden at all costs. And that is the truth. Nothing is more unbearable to a narcissist than seeing themselves for who they truly are. They spend their entire lives avoiding it, running from it, covering it up with lies and manipulation. They surround themselves with people who will validate their delusions, who will play along with the fantasy they've built. But the moment you hold up the mirror, the moment you reflect their behavior back at them, you force them to see what they so desperately avoid. And that is a wound deeper than any insult, any argument, any rejection. At first, they will deny it. They will twist reality, gaslight, tell you that what you're seeing isn't real. They will accuse you of misunderstanding them, of overreacting. They will play the victim, make excuses, shift the blame, because accepting the truth, that's not an option for them. Admitting fault, admitting weakness, admitting that they are not perfect, that would shatter everything. But deep down, they know. They know their lies don't quite add up. They know their charm is just a mask. They know that the reason they need constant admiration, constant control, constant validation is because without it, they feel empty. And when you hold up the mirror, when you refuse to let them escape their own reflection, they have nowhere to run. You don't even have to call them out aggressively. You don't have to argue or fight. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply point out what they are doing in a calm, matter-of-fact way. When they twist the truth, simply repeat their own words back to them. When they try to manipulate you, ask them direct questions they can't squirm out of. When they contradict themselves, remind them of what they said before. Watch them shift, fidget, deflect. Watch them scramble to keep the illusion intact. And when they realize that you see them clearly, that you are no longer falling for the act, their entire demeanor changes. The charm disappears. The arrogance fades. And what's left is something raw, something desperate. A narcissist without control over their image is like a magician caught mid-trick, with the wires and smoke machines exposed for the world to see. They feel humiliated, they feel weak, and nothing is more torturous to them than that. They will do everything in their power to regain control. They will lash out, insult you, try to tear you down so you don't feel strong enough to challenge them again. Or they will go the other way, love bomb you, overwhelm you with kindness, try to make you forget what you saw. They will try to rewrite the narrative, make you doubt your own eyes, make you believe that maybe you were wrong, but you weren't wrong. You saw the truth, you made them see it too, and whether they admit it or not, that moment will haunt them, because for the first time, someone stripped away the illusion. Someone saw through the act. Someone made them confront the one thing they have been running from their entire lives, themselves. A narcissist thrives on control. They need to feel like they have power over people, power over emotions, power over decisions, power over how others see them. This is not just a preference. It is their lifeline. They manipulate, they provoke, they play mind games, all with one goal in mind: to keep you emotionally invested. As long as you care, whether in love, in anger, in frustration, they still have a hold on you. But the moment you walk away with no emotion, when you detach completely, when you no longer react the way they expect, you become their worst nightmare. They are used to pulling the strings. They know how to push your buttons, how to make you question yourself, how to keep you engaged in their twisted game. Maybe they insult you just enough to make you feel like you need to prove something to them. Maybe they guilt trip you so you feel obligated to stay. Maybe they alternate between kindness and cruelty, keeping you in a constant state of confusion. No matter how they do it, the goal is always the same: to make sure you don't leave, or at the very least that you leave feeling something: hurt, regret, anger, sadness. Because if you're emotional, then in their mind they still have some level of control. But when you walk away without emotion, when you leave without arguing, without crying, without needing closure, that is something they don't know how to handle. That is something they can't process, because they expect a reaction. They expect a dramatic exit, a final fight, a desperate attempt to make them see your worth. They expect something that reassures them that they mattered, that they had an impact, that they were in some way important to you. But when you give them nothing, no words, no final confrontation, no energy, it sends a message louder than any argument ever could: they don't matter. And to a narcissist, that is unbearable. They will try to provoke you. They will poke at old wounds, bring up the past, throw insults meant to hurt you. They will do everything in their power to make you feel something, because that's the only way they can regain control. They need to know they still exist in your mind, that they still occupy space in your emotions, because if they don't, if they realize you have truly moved on, truly detached, truly stopped caring, that is the kind of pain they don't know how to deal with. You see, narcissists don't actually believe people will leave them for good. They assume they are unforgettable, irreplaceable. That's why they act like they can treat people however they want, because in their mind you will always come back. You might get upset, you might pull away for a while, but eventually they assume you'll return, either because you miss them or because you need some form of closure, and they rely on that. But when you leave without looking back, without giving them another second of your energy, it forces them to face something terrifying. They weren't as important as they thought. Their presence wasn't as powerful as they believed. The illusion of their superiority shatters, and they are left alone, wondering why their usual tactics didn't work. They might pretend they don't care. They might act indifferent, like it doesn't bother them. But don't be fooled. Inside, they are restless. They replay the situation in their mind over and over, trying to figure out how they lost control. They check to see if you've reached out, if you've mentioned them, if you've shown any sign that they still matter. When they find nothing, no messages, no reaction, no trace of you in their world, it eats away at them. Because a narcissist's greatest fear is not being hated, it's being nothing to you. And when you walk away with no emotion, when you leave without a single thread tying you back to them, you give them exactly what they fear the most.